You're just a pathetic drunk pretending to be something better. Her words, sharp as shards of glass, sliced through the air, aimed directly at the heart of my hard-won sobriety. My 3-year bronze medallion, a symbol of triumph, suddenly felt like a heavy, cold weight in my pocket. This wasn't just an argument, it was war. The bronze medallion was cool and heavy in my palm. 3 years. The Roman numeral III was stark against the raised circle and triangle of the Alcoholics Anonymous symbol. It wasn't fancy, just a simple token, but it represented 1,095 days of choosing myself over a bottle. 1,095 mornings I woke up without a pounding head and a chasm of regret. I was celebrating not with a party, but with the one thing sobriety had truly given me back: a quiet, peaceful evening. The scent of chamomile tea filled my small apartment, a stark contrast to the sour stench of stale beer that used to cling to everything I owned. The lock turned and the front door swung open, bringing a gust of city air and Dahlia. She dropped her tote bag on the floor with a heavy thud, the sound echoing in the stillness. "Hey," she said, pulling off her coat. Her eyes briefly flicked to the medallion on the coffee table. "Oh, right, it's today. Happy soberversary, or whatever you call it. 3 years, huh?" "Time flies." There was no warmth in her voice, just the perfunctory acknowledgement of a recurring calendar event like a distant cousin's birthday. I'd long ago stopped expecting confetti and praise, but a simple, genuine smile would have been nice. "Thanks, Dee," I said, my own smile feeling a little tight. "It's a big one." "Yeah, great." She kicked off her shoes and headed for the kitchen, grabbing a bottle of water from the fridge. "Listen, about Saturday. My colleague Annika is having a housewarming party. It's going to be a big thing. Everyone from my firm will be there. You're coming, obviously." It wasn't a question. I felt a familiar, slight clenching in my gut. A party, sure, will there be? She cut me off, her tone already laced with impatience. "Vic, it's a party. Of course there will be drinking. A lot of it, but you're 3 years and now it's not like it's a big deal for you anymore, right?" She leaned against the doorframe, taking a long sip of water. "You won't be weird about it, will you? I need you to be normal. It's important for my career." Be normal, the words hung in the air. As if my sobriety was an abnormal state I needed to hide. The sting was sharp, but I swallowed it down just as I had 100 times before. She doesn't get it, I told myself, the old, tired mantra. She's not trying to be cruel. She just doesn't understand what this medallion actually costs. "No, of course not," I heard myself say, placing the cool bronze coin back on the table. "I'll be normal." That promise to be normal was a well-worn groove in the record of our relationship. It meant I would stand there, nursing a soda water with lime, smiling politely while Dahlia's friends got progressively louder and looser. It meant I would laugh along when the inevitable jokes were made at my expense, because Dahlia believed my past was a quirky anecdote to make her seem more interesting, more magnanimous for saving me. I remembered her firm's Christmas party 2 years ago. We were standing in a circle with her boss when he offered me a glass of champagne. "Oh no, he doesn't," Dahlia had interjected with a theatrical laugh, patting my arm. "Victor's a reformed man. He's our designated saint now, aren't you, babe? Lives on sparkling water and moral superiority." The group chuckled and I felt my face burn. I wasn't a saint. I was a man in recovery, a daily, sometimes hourly, struggle she had just reduced to a punchline for her boss. When I confronted her in the car on the way home, my voice quiet with shame, her response was swift and defensive. "Oh, relax, it was a joke. God, you're so sensitive. I was just trying to make it less awkward." Then there was the dinner with our friends, Maya and Ben. The waiter came to take our drink orders. Dahlia, already scanning the wine list, didn't even look up. "A bottle of the Malbec for the table," she announced, then gestured to me with a flick of her wrist. "And just a tap water for him. He's a graduate of the School of Hard Knocks." She winked at Maya, who offered me a weak, sympathetic smile. The casualness of it, the way she used my struggle as a shorthand for her own cleverness, was like a paper cut. It was small, almost insignificant, but it bled and it stung long after the moment passed. Each time, I would try to explain why it hurt. I'd try to articulate that my sobriety wasn't a personality trait or a fun fact. It was the foundation upon which I was rebuilding my entire life. And each time she would deploy the same arsenal of defenses. "You're overthinking it. It was just a harmless comment. Why do you have to make everything so serious?" Over time, her words worked. I began to question myself. Was I too sensitive? Was I the one making things difficult, unable to take a simple joke? The constant, low-level humiliation became a kind of background noise I learned to tolerate. It was the price of admission for her love, for the life we had built. I told myself that this was just Dahlia's way, a little sharp, a little careless, but not malicious. I loved her, and love meant accepting the flaws. I was a frog, slowly boiling in a pot of water she kept telling me was just a warm, relaxing bath. I kept telling myself that too. The argument, when it finally happened, started over something trivial. It always does. Dahlia had just been invited on a last-minute weekend trip to a boutique winery with Annika, the same colleague whose party was on Saturday. The trip was for this asterisk weekend, my weekend, the one that held my 3-year anniversary. I can't go, Dee, I said, trying to keep my voice even. You know I have my AA meeting on Saturday morning. It's my turn to lead the share. It's important. Important, she scoffed, tossing her phone onto the sofa. More important than me. It's a winery, Victor. It's a networking opportunity. I told you things like this were important for my career. It's not a competition, I said, my own frustration beginning to simmer. This isn't just any meeting, I'm chairing it. There's a newcomer, a kid named Leo, who I'm sponsoring. He's really struggling. I promised him I'd be there. The look on Dahlia's face shifted. The mask of casual annoyance dropped away, replaced by a cold, rising fury. Oh, of course, St. Victor has to go save another lost soul. You and your pathetic little club. It's not a pathetic little club, Dahlia, I shot back, my voice rising. It's the reason you're not coming home to a man passed out on the floor. It's the reason I have a life at all. That was it, that was the line. I saw something snap behind her eyes. She stood up, her body trembling with a rage that seemed to come from a place I had never seen before, a place of pure distilled resentment. A life, she sneered, her voice low and venomous. You call this a life, going to your sad little meetings and patting each other on the back for not destroying yourselves? Don't you dare act so high and mighty with me. She took a step closer, her finger jabbing the air in front of my face. You want to talk about what you were? I remember what you were. Don't you ever forget that I was the one who had to drag you out of a bar at 2 in the morning, reeking of vomit? I was the one who had to lie to your boss when you were too hungover to go to work. So don't stand there and preach to me about your new life. She paused, her eyes glittering with malice, and delivered the final, fatal blow. You think you're so impressive with your little bronze coin. You're not, you're just a pathetic drunk who's pretending to be something better. And maybe, deep down, that's all you'll ever be, no matter how many stupid meetings you go to. The words hit me. But they didn't break me. In the ringing silence that followed, I didn't feel the familiar sting of shame or the hot rush of anger. All I felt was a profound, chilling calm. The water in the pot had finally reached a boil, and the frog was, at long last, perfectly, horribly clear on its situation. I saw her, really saw her, for the first time. She wasn't just careless. She wasn't just insensitive. She was cruel. And she had just used the deepest wound of my past as a weapon, aiming to kill the man I had fought for 1,095 days to become. I didn't say a word. The roar of her accusation was still echoing in the room, but inside my head there was only silence. A vast, empty, and blessedly quiet space. All the excuses I had made for her, all the justifications, all the times I'd told myself asterisk, she doesn't mean it asterisk, they all evaporated in an instant. What remained was a single, undeniable truth. I turned, walked to the closet, and put on my jacket. Where are you going? Dahlia demanded, her voice still sharp but now laced with a flicker of uncertainty. Running away, can't handle the truth. I didn't answer. I picked up my keys from the bowl by the door and walked out, closing it gently behind me. The click of the latch was the softest, most definitive sound I had ever heard. I didn't drive aimlessly. There was no screeching of tires, no desperate flight into the night. My hands were steady on the wheel. I drove the familiar route, the one I had taken countless times over the past 3 years, and pulled up in front of a modest suburban house with a porch light burning. This was Marcus's house. Marcus was my sponsor, a retired mechanic with hands like worn leather and a gaze that saw through bullshit better than any X-ray machine. He opened the door before I even knocked, a half-amused, half-concerned look on his face. Figured it was you. You drive that Prius like you're trying to sneak up on someone. What's wrong? He led me into his small, cluttered living room that smelled of coffee and sawdust. I sat on his worn armchair and in a flat, even voice, I told him everything. I recounted the argument, the winery, the things I'd said, and then verbatim the words Dahlia had hurled at me. I didn't cry, I didn't raise my voice. I just reported the facts, like a witness giving a statement. When I finished, Marcus was quiet for a long moment, swirling the dregs of cold coffee in his mug. He looked at me, his eyes serious, and his next words weren't the comforting platitudes I might have expected. They were a diagnosis. Victor, he said, his voice a low rumble. What's the very first, most important thing we learn when we walk into that first meeting? The foundation of it all. I knew the answer instantly: to avoid slippery places. People, places, and things that are a threat to our sobriety. Exactly, he nodded, leaning forward. And we usually think that means a bar or that one drinking buddy from the old days. We don't expect it to be the person sleeping next to us. He set his mug down with a firm thud. What she did tonight, that's worse than her leaving a bottle of Jack Daniels on your pillow. A bottle is a simple temptation. What she did was an attack on your recovery itself. She tried to make you believe that all your work was for nothing. She tried to make you believe you're still the man you were 3 years ago. He held my gaze. That's not a fight with a partner, son. That's an enemy action. You're not overreacting. You're recognizing a threat. His words didn't just comfort me, they armed me. They took the last shred of self-doubt, that nagging whisper of asterisk, am I being too sensitive, and utterly annihilated it. Marcus wasn't just my friend offering sympathy. He was my sponsor, reminding me of the life-or-death rules of the world I now inhabited. And Dahlia had just broken the first and most sacred one. When I got back to the apartment, the lights were still on. Dahlia was on the sofa, scrolling through her phone. She looked up as I entered, her expression a mixture of defiance and expectation. She probably thought I'd cooled off, that I was coming back to grovel, to begin the familiar cycle of apology and strained reconciliation. She was waiting for me to say I was sorry for storming out. I didn't even look at her. I walked past the living room and straight into our bedroom. The silence was thick with her unspoken questions. I went to the large walk-in closet and pulled out her biggest suitcase, the hardshell one she used for international travel. I rolled it out into the center of the living room and laid it open on the floor. The snap of the latches echoed in the quiet apartment. Finally, she spoke, her voice tight with disbelief. What are you doing? I didn't answer. I went back into the bedroom, opened her side of the closet, and began taking out her clothes. Not in an angry, chaotic mess, but calmly, methodically. I took a stack of her silk blouses, folded them neatly one by one, and placed them inside the suitcase. Then I moved on to her jeans, her sweaters, her work dresses. Each item was handled with a strange, detached care, as if I were packing for a stranger. Victor, stop it, she said, standing up now, her voice rising in panic. What the hell do you think you're doing? Are you insane? I paused, holding a stack of her favorite cashmere sweaters. I looked at her then, truly looked at her, and my voice was as calm and steady as my hands. I wasn't arguing, I wasn't yelling, I was explaining a fundamental principle. Dahlia, my recovery has taught me many things, I began, my tone conversational, almost academic. But the most important rule, the one that underpins everything else, isn't about how to fight the urge to drink. It's about how to rebuild a life that's worth protecting. And that rule is, you remove yourself without compromise from any and all toxic environments that threaten your sobriety. I placed the sweaters gently into the suitcase. People, places, things. That's what they tell you to watch out for. I looked back up at her, my eyes meeting hers without a flicker of doubt. For 3 years, I thought that meant avoiding bars or not calling certain old friends. I never imagined the most dangerous environment of all could be my own home. I picked up her shoe rack from the closet floor. You made me understand something tonight. This isn't a relationship problem, this is a survival issue. I knelt and began placing her shoes in the side pockets of the suitcase. So, I'm not breaking up with you, Dahlia. I'm following my program, I'm removing the toxin, I am choosing to live. Her face crumbled, the anger, the defiance, it all dissolved into sheer, uncomprehending horror. This wasn't the fight she had prepared for. I hadn't raised my voice. I hadn't thrown her words back at her. I had simply accepted them as fact and was now acting on them with the cold, quiet efficiency of a surgeon removing a cancer. And there was absolutely nothing she could say to stop me. A year can feel like a lifetime, or it can pass in the quiet, steady rhythm of healing. For me, it was the latter. My life didn't explode into some glamorous new chapter. It settled, it deepened. The peace I had once only found in the moments after a meeting began to permeate my entire existence. I chaired more meetings, sponsored 2 more newcomers after Leo, and found a quiet satisfaction in it that no career promotion or romantic high had ever provided. My apartment, once a stage for low-grade psychological warfare, became a sanctuary. It smelled of coffee, old books, and the lemon-scented polish I used on my grandfather's old wooden desk. It smelled like me. I was at a small cafe near the community center after a Saturday morning meeting, sitting with Marcus. We had a standing tradition of dissecting the share over bad diner coffee. He was stirring his cup, a thoughtful look on his face. Ran into someone you know yesterday, he said casually, not looking at me. At the grocery store, Dahlia. I felt nothing. Not a jolt of anger, not a pang of nostalgia, just a mild, detached curiosity. I took a sip of my own coffee. Oh yeah, how is she? Not great, Marcus said, finally meeting my eyes. He wasn't gloating, he was just stating a fact, like a mechanic reporting on a faulty engine. She looked worn out, thinner. She saw me in the produce aisle and practically ran over. Started asking about you immediately. He shook his head slightly. It was a whole thing, Vic. She went on, how she was just angry that night, how she didn't mean it, how she'd do anything to take it back. She asked if you were seeing anyone, asked if you were happy. She said she finally understood what she'd thrown away. He paused. She told me to tell you she was sorry. That she'd do anything for another chance. Marcus looked at me, gauging my reaction. I told her you were doing well, that you were at peace. And I told her that from where I was standing, it looked like that door was closed, locked, and the key had been thrown away. I looked out the cafe window at the people passing by on the sidewalk, each living out their own quiet or chaotic story. Dahlia's frantic regret didn't bring me any sense of victory. There was no satisfying I told you so moment. Her suffering wasn't the reward, my peace was. The ultimate revenge wasn't her misery, it was my indifference to it. The final step in my recovery wasn't just staying sober. It was realizing with absolute certainty that the person I had to save, the person I had to protect above all others was me. And I had finally left behind not just a toxic partner, but the version of myself who believed he deserved to be treated that way. I took another sip of coffee, the warmth spreading through my chest. The taste was simple, clean, and real. I was free.